we've got a bunch of indie comic books that we've backed over the years, and a few of them are from uh, probably one of the pioneers of the current way of doing indie comics, which is Richard C. Meyer, aka
Hmm.
Ya Boi Zack.
Yep.
And so DB is going to start us off here with what he read.
Yep. So this one is Runner, which actually showed up in the mail a few weeks ago. Um, and this is one that in his so Zach is interesting because is willing to try bold things, both business wise and creatively.
Mhm.
Just for example, the campaign that this was part of was Jawbreakers Forever. Well, he had been very late on Jawbreakers Grand Bazaar, and so as like an apology tour, he was offering Grand Bazaar for just $1.
Right, I remember
Which, you know,
that. Yeah.
how do you make money on that? Oh, you don't. His theory was that he would keep running it at that rate uh, until people stopped buying extra books to go with it.
Mm.
Which he never ended up doing the whole campaign because everybody bought on average 1 to 2 extra comics per book, and he talked about this. So it's like, some people just bought $1 copy of Jawbreakers, but other people were basically buying both a mix of his back issues and new comics.
Yeah.
So it was so it's really like it's a perfect loss leader.
Hmm.
And it worked out for him because he netted about, well, he didn't net, he grossed about 120,000 on a campaign where where the most commonly sold item was $1 comic book plus whatever shipping.
Yeah.
So the first one to arrive was Runner, which is a collaboration between him and the cartoonist Narwhal, who is a creator in his own right.
Hmm.
One thing I'll say is that the Narzak comics always seem to come out the fastest, and it's very clear why the Narzak comics come out the fastest. Because, and this is showing pages from Runner. Narwhal has a very is rough the right word even? Like just like a very
I was gonna.
intentionally sloppy art style.
Yeah. I was gonna say bizarre, but
Yeah, because on the one hand, it kind of, and this might just be some jaggies on this picture here because I didn't really notice in the comic books, but it
Mm.
almost looks like it was done in MS Paint with pre-rendered CGI backgrounds, right? Free to use CGI backgrounds.
Yeah.
And of course, it has a giant shitting out bones, so that's lovely.
Yeah.
But of course, that the art is only part of a comic, and I would say that the last Narzak comic I bought, I thought that Narwhal's art worked pretty well for it, which is part of why I backed this one too.
Mm.
But the story of Runner is it's set in a medieval-ish time, and they don't really go into a lot of details because you don't necessarily need a lot of the background lore. You just have to know Army A and Army B hate each other.
Mm.
Army A has figured out that if they can control this pass, uh, then they can seize everything, or it's like a linchpin. And so they send this messenger out uh, to to tell a particular squad to go up to take the pass.
Mm.
The runner decides to lie to the squad, and it turns out that excuse me, and it turns out that or he basically gives himself an hour to take the pass solo and be the big damn hero.
Ah, okay.
And once he's there, he meets this giant. Um, yeah, it is a bit scatological when he meets the giant.
Yeah.
Um, it's I'm going to go ahead and spoil this because, like all crowdfunded comic books, this one has a pretty small distribution. So if this
Mhm.
is something you want to see and own, then pick it up on his next Zack Friday or whatever campaign.
Yeah.
You find out the giant's backstory. Like you'll notice that the giant has these weird star eyes.
Mm.
It's because this feels so weird to say. He was a kind of a mutant born to the other side of the runner,
Okay.
and yeah, he was the greatest soldier of that side's army, and he was brought to this island that they're fighting over, or this land that they're fighting over, and he got drunk, fell asleep on the beach, and his eyes were eaten by seagulls.
Ouch.
Which means seagulls are bastards, uh, or baby seals. They'll do that to them too.
Yeah. Eesh.
But it's a very strange concept. And so, since their greatest soldier was blinded, they just threw him up into the past and told them to hold it.
Oh, he's
And so it's the runner finding out the giant's backstory, and uh, it's all very strange. Like the giant wants to die, so he goads him into a fight. After it seems like they're going to get along, and so he basically commits suicide by cop.
uh huh.
There's some interesting visuals there. Probably the creepiest one is when the runner ends up inside the giant's eye hole in the course of their fight. Um, and then of course the pass has been taken. They show the squad, who's a little bit unhappy with the runner, shows up to find that he has in fact seized all the glory and is standing on top of the fallen giant. And the runner becomes the the promise the king made was whoever takes this pass will get to marry my daughter. Which one? The pretty one. which was a good line.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little sardonic good lines in this.
Yeah.
And so, that comes to pass. The runner becomes the new king, and he takes as his standard a very odd. It's like Narzak doing a take on medieval
Mm.
where it's like a representation of the giant and a seagull carrying an eyeball, and that's the end. You see what I mean when I described it before the stream as sequel proof.
Yeah.
So that's the comic. I don't know that I liked it. There were interesting ideas in it, but I would say that if I had a criticism of some of Zach's comics, is that you don't necessarily like get why you care about the character.
Yeah.
Now this kind of abrasive style really works with Iron Sights and Jawbreakers.
Mhm.
Though in Iron Sights, in book 2, he killed off the main character from the first book. It's like I don't feel like he necessarily. In fact, he's had to bend over backwards to bring back the Jawbreakers from the dead, because it's like he didn't used to appreciate how much people actually care about the characters themselves.
Yeah.
A very modern Marvel mistake to make.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Like I would call this one like a solid C on the enjoyment level, because
Mm.
the art is interesting in places, but I feel like the one I read was the last Narzak book I read was this one that was like a Twilight Zone episode about of where aliens show up claiming to have had an alliance with the Nazis, and they need to provide 2 million soldiers in order to avoid the destruction of the Earth and violating the treaty. And it's got a couple of Twilight Zone like twists.
Uh, hmm.
So that was more of a. This one was kind of a. This one was. I got it just because it was relatively inexpensive, and because I had liked the last one. I don't know. Like Narwhal's art style just doesn't jive with me in a lot of
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah. I would agree with you on that. Yeah. I I like Narwhal as a person. He seems like a really cool dude, but his art style is just kind of like, yeah, it doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah, and I was kind of throwing some mean shade earlier, but yeah, you can see why the Narzac books are always the ones that are the fastest to complete, which is probably a big chunk of why they do so many of them because
Yeah,
y- Narwhal's just by the nature of it is he isn't Ethan Van Sciver uh, hatching every single thing on every single page before he's allowed to move on to the next.
yeah,
But that's my Ya Boi Zack comic.
yeah.
Tell us
So
about yours.
yeah, so here's mine, the Ballad of No, which is, yeah, of course, written by Ya Boi Zack, and then the all the artwork was done by Kelsey Shannon. This is Zach being uh, uh, engaging in social commentary,
Hyper contemporary.
hyper contemporary. Yes, much like his other comic book, Pandemic, which is, you know came out right around, what. Um,
Yep.
so this story, this is the story. As you can see here, summer 2020 in LA, the summer of love. Um, and there's a big fire at a mental hospital, and one of the patients, who's only goes by the name No, because that's all he says is no.
Right. It's like
Uh,
if you tell him to do anything, he will disagree on principle. That's his mental problem.
yes, no matter what it is, and so he goes out into the world during all of the riots and bad stuff that was going on. Uh, and just kind of, just goes around indiscriminately beating and killing people. Or I don't know, I can't remember if he kills anybody, but he
I That looks pretty deadly there.
yeah. Um,
Uh, I'll say that what I kind of I kind of enjoyed this one just because of the of the logic, like the irony that somebody who's just going around doing what people aren't doing in the middle of insanity becomes the sane one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's definitely that aspect of it, which is really good. And but yeah, he and so it just him going around, like and it definitely has a lot of the commentary in there, like the guy there that gets shot in the head. He's obviously supposed to be LeBron James, or a variation of LeBron James.
Oh, I did not catch on that. Huh.
Yeah, because or at least somebody who was really, somebody really prominent like that. Because there's a scene in there where, he's telling everybody, you need to burn everything down, and then they burn his house down. He's like, not my house.
Yeah.
um, but I mean, and of course, no, he just, he doesn't really care like who he's going after. He's just,
Right.
yeah,
Uh, and it's like yeah, it's like an interesting thought experiment.
yeah, and yeah, and from that standpoint, it's an interesting little, yeah, like you said, thought experiment. Um, and so, but then of course another character in there is his doctor, and of course his doctor has him figured out. She'd tell him, kill that mf'er. And he's like, no, and he just stops. Like,
Yep.
don't surrender. Okay.
And I gotta say, I'm a big fan of Kelsey Shannon's art in this comic. It's
Oh yeah, his artwork's the standout, I think.
yep.
Yeah,
But
I think that guy's supposed to be LeBron James.
I'm hearing you sounding very couched in your praise of this one.
Um, I mean, I'm really not a big fan of, like, of being like, I try to, try to avoid like being too topical with stuff, or reading stuff that's a little too topical, just because of the way society is these days.
Right. So, right, you go to your entertainment for escapism.
Right. Yeah. And this hit a little too close to home.
I can get that. I remember I was watching this comedy special with my dad on Netflix when we were waiting around one day, and the guy was just talking about 2020, and he could tell pretty quickly I wasn't enjoying myself in the slightest.
Yeah. 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 So, but I mean, it's an interesting story. And I think the character is really interesting, and the artwork's really great. But I mean, it kind of felt like, I hate to say it, this was probably would have been something I would have written when I was like in high school or college.
Right, like not necessarily the most biting social commentary.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, but I mean, he does poke fun at. I think Zach does a pretty good job of poking fun at everybody. I think, um, on both sides. Like, I mean, you see like in the opening page where he No meets a old woman wearing walking her dog, and she's telling him to wear a mask, and he says no. He's like, "You're gonna kill me." And,
Yep.
uh, which we saw a lot of that in 2020, and
Yeah. We kind of it's kind of funny that I talked about like the problem that I sometimes have getting into his characters. How
mhm.
funny is it like that one of the characters that I got the most behind was a literal psychopath.
Yeah. Well, you know who he is, you know what he is. So I mean, it's once you figure that out, it's like, okay, I get what he's doing, I get what's going on, and
That is one of the weird things in fiction, that where if you have a character like the most popular character in most shows is the character who is the most true to what they're advertised to be.
yeah,
Like to bring up an example that somebody pointed out when I was mentioning this, like in Ruby, one of the most popular characters is Ruby herself is not especially popular with the fan base as far as I can tell, outside of, well, she's the main character, so of course she is.
yeah,
Um, the, uh, but the character of Weiss is extremely popular among
mhm,
people I know who still care about the show because what does she advertise at the start? Spoiled princess heiress who has to grow. And what is she from the start? She is a spoiled heiress who has aristocratic assumptions, or at least like rich girl assumptions, and she has to grow.
yeah,
As opposed to what's Ruby's character trait? Oh, she's the main character and is good, and
mm,
is very chipper, which kind of means that if you see her in a down moment, then
yeah,
you're kind of violating that. Like, there's not really much to go with. No is another good example of that, where
yeah,
you just execute a relatively simple premise, and you don't violate it, then you're good.
yeah. And yeah, I definitely had that here. And but I mean, I think the more I think about it, I don't think I dislike it as much as I did after I initially read it. Because I started thinking about it more. And it's like, I mean, I mean, it's a a fascinating little story, and I kind of wonder too, like, you know, uh, you put somebody like that in a situation like what we had 3 years ago. I mean, this would have been what would have happened. You just
Yeah, he just might not have lived quite as long. But
right, yeah,
now, what I will say is that I like this one a whole lot better than Pandemic,
mm,
because my issue with Pandemic was that if I hadn't known what the premise was from hearing him pitch the story, I don't think I could have figured it out from the context in the story.
yeah,
Also, No is coming back when he does more of these Theosophy comics, which are he's like doing an Avengers type thing of his different characters that are being introduced in that, and I think I'm out, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, that seems a little odd. I think.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I think that No is a good one and done concept, but I can't see him being interesting in general outside of this.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's he's a one trick pony. I mean,
Yep,
it's his whole thing is, he says no and he disagrees no matter what it is, and
yep.
it's kind of like,
So
yeah, kind of like Bizarro.
that's right. Oh well,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
so it's interesting to just kind of go into our crowdfunding backlog. And now the two of these, I feel like this could have actually been published by a regular comic book company. I don't think Narwhal. I think like he is a
Very,
creature of crowdfunding. Like it,
yeah,
because I don't, I can't see a regular studio taking it, or not studio, regular comic company taking a chance on his art style.
yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah,
Though I would love to see some of this animated because I think that this could look very interesting in motion.
I think so too. Yeah, and if it's even though I'm not a big fan of the style, but I mean, if it was rotoscoped, I mean,
Yeah, that would be
yeah,
neat.
yeah,
But yep, enough of picking on your boy Zach slightly.
yeah.
Let's pick on bigger targets.
Yes.
Hey, Holy, or hey, Ninja.
Oh, hey, Ninja, good to see you.